Hi everybody. My name is Phil Right Click Valentine. I like to call myself Right Click every now and then because that brings me back to my Appalachian Trail days and hiking in the woods and brings me a little peace. And I still have vision of doing that again someday. And maybe the Continental Divide Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail, and keeps me young. But anyway, we are here doing some coaches for coaches. Um, what did I talk about last month? Oh yeah, I think I broke down a little bit, right? What do you do when the coach isn't feeling so good? That was kind of an impromptu session, and it meant a lot to me. So here I am a month later, still moving through, and life is good. The best is yet to come. I'm fully aware of that. So today I want to start with hearing from all of you. I want you to introduce yourself, where you're from, anything you have about how you're serving as a recovery coach that might be interesting or beneficial to the rest of us. And I want you to describe a pet peeve. A pet peeve. So I am right now, I'm in Hartford, Connecticut. And I've been at CCAR now for 23 plus years, and in recovery for 34 plus years. I just talked about hiking, so I'll use this pet peeve for me. One of the pet peeves that I have is when I'm in the woods and obviously somebody has picked up dog poop in a plastic bag and they tied it in a little nice knot and then dropped it on the side of the trail. So, I mean, I don't know what they expect us to do or other people to do with that. What did they think was going to happen to that bag of poop? Is it just good? So that's one of my pet peeves. And I'm starting to start the day with a poop reference, but that's what I did. So that's a pet peeve of mine. And so one of the ways I'd like to do this is everybody go down to the reactions, raise your hand, and then when I call on you to introduce yourself, you can put your hand down. There you go. So Neetha, you beat everybody to the punch. In Family Feud, you hit the button first.
Oh, so what I'm doing in the recovery coaching field, where I'm at, and a pet peeve, right?
And who you are probably is the best way to introduce yourself.
Right.
Yes.
I'm Neetha. I'm a recovery coach in the UK and a recovery coach trainer. And yeah, I'm just really cool with that title and all of that. What am I doing? I think right now what I've realized is the importance of community and engagement, and how investing in that and investing my time in other people for a bigger purpose is so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of my pet peeves is probably a bit of self-awareness about myself, is I get a little bit peeved with myself when I see other people's actions and see it as maybe malice or causing harm, when actually it's about a lack of understanding or a lack of empathy on the other party's side. So I'm trying to reset and go, maybe it's just a lack of understanding and they're not just mean.
Do you have a specific example you're referring to?
I think just the nature of people. Sometimes people say recovery coaching will not work in the UK. It's too American. And to me, I kind of go, oh, you're just being a bit mean or something, or where actually it's probably a lack of awareness, understanding, empathy for different pathways, which a lack of education even.
Okay. Thank you for that. Khalees, you're up next.
Hi, y'all. My name is Khalees. I'm a recovery coach professional and trainer. Although Mom has a new job title for me, she is saying that I am the CEO, the Chief Engagement Officer, because all I do is talk to our community people and organize all of that stuff. And it's really amazing and I love it. What do I do? So what do I do? My name and a pet peeve, right?
Yes.
Well, so whenever I was thinking about pet peeve, I was thinking about something very minimal, but then Mama's just come in and brought up this whole thing, like a very strong pet peeve. And I'm like, should I think about this more intently?
Nah,
So
go with your first thought.
well, I was just gonna say, like, I have a really big pet peeve around people chewing gum and like smacking and stuff like that. Like that really just irks my nerves. And even my son has decided he really likes gum, and I'm having a really difficult relationship with the fact that Parker's liking gum now. And I'm like, ugh. It's nasty to me, just nasty. So that's my thing. Don't like it.
Gotcha. Hi, Virginia.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Phil. So an introduction, I'm Virginia Adams. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I'm also the center manager at the Hartford Recovery Community Center, and I've been with CCAR for more than 10 years. And yay! And let's see here. In terms of recovery coaching, right now, I'm really stoked. I'm working with a wonderful recovery who's doing well in her recovery. And one of the things that's coming up for me is how to be a better resource broker as she moves through her benchmarks and builds on her recovery capital. Like, how can I better support her in finding resources that she needs as she moves from different stages of recovery? So that's where I'm at in terms of recovery coaching. One of my pet peeves is, my car. I mean, my car was misdiagnosed. There's a mechanical problem. And I'm already projecting that it's going to be hundreds of dollars and time away from my car, which is so inconvenient. But I hate when this happens. And something just went on my car this morning. So I'm just like fit to be tied about that. But that's my pet peeve of the day.
Thank you, Virginia. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Phil and everyone. So I am Laura Waters, and I am in Brunswick, Georgia, which is right on the coast, halfway between Jacksonville, Florida, and Savannah, Georgia. And I'm currently, a recovery coach in training, but I do have a client currently. We're kind of working on her sovereignty. So included in that is some issues around independence and boundaries, of course. But sovereignty is really a big thing for me because I did not inhabit my sovereignty. So I've learned how to do that, and it's still a work in progress, but I help women particularly do that as well. So a pet peeve of mine that comes up right now is people who are certain about everything. And this means to me that there's no openness whatsoever in a person who is certain they know the answer to everything.
Yeah. I have a question for you. How would you describe sovereignty in the context you just mentioned it?
Sovereignty is learning, well, it's personal autonomy, self-efficacy really is involved in that. Yeah, that's how being in your own power kind of thing. Yeah, and being able to live from that, inhabiting that ground of being.
That's pretty cool. Thanks, Laura.
Sure.
James.
Hi, everyone. This is a lovely surprise. I just saw the link in the group and very quickly got cut off when I rang Khalees to ask what it actually was. Yeah, I'm based in, I've missed the questions, but I've kind of caught the drift. I'm based in the UK. I'm in East Yorkshire, on the coast. I'm a recovery coach. I've done the original training with Neetha and Khalees, the beta test, as well as numerous modules. And I actually even did the hospital A&E department, or sorry, emergency department training over in the US. Not physically, mind you, just online. Challenge with recovery coaching at the moment. I am interviewing probably 20 odd people to take on the role of recovery coaches, ideally. And it's just, I run a project supporting people in the community, but specifically coming out of the hospital. And it's just about getting my head round how much time they all have to give. So some of them can be full-time volunteers, some of them can work in between their current full-time jobs, and trying to gauge how to build a model that supports them to support the clients, whether or not that's just texting and being there, or whether or not that's physically meeting up and developing something with them. So I guess that's my biggest challenge of today. And Neetha and I spent best part of an hour on the phone this morning talking about that. Biggest peeve? Oh, goodness me. Biggest peeve, I'm just going to name it. Corruption and bureaucracy, especially when it's involved in creating barriers that prevent me and the people I represent from accessing things like recovery coaching. So, for example, statutory providers and existing public health networks that are like, well, yeah, it's okay, we want to support you. However, due to X, Y, and Z, we're just going to keep all the funds for our old model that doesn't work. And it's more than frustrating. And a peeve would be the absolute minimum term I would use to describe it. But when I know corruption exists worldwide. I can be corrupt in a small way with my own family. Corruption exists. I get it. But when it's putting up barriers to actually supporting people that are dying without access to proper support, that's when corruption really starts to peeve me. So, yeah, I guess that's where I'm at. No,
Hey,
lovely to see everyone.
So James, we added a word to the peeve, a pet peeve. And so that was like a system-wide peeve. Do you have like a pet peeve that for you personally?
A pet peeve, yes, I do. I don't know what public toilets are like in America, but for me, they put the soap and the sink in the bathroom. So you do your business, you wash your hands, then you are forced to open a door that everybody's touched and you re-germinate your hands. So I think toilets, washing facilities should be in an area outside of the immediate toilet. So once you've washed your hands, you can go about your business without getting germs back on them again.
Well, there you go. I like that. Thank you. Who do we have next? Hey, WRCC. Who's that? Who are you guys? You guys got some pet peeves you want to share with us? Who you are and all that? I missed you yesterday. And there you go.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name's Tommy Gillespie. I'm a recent graduate of the Recovery Coach Academy. I think one of my big pet peeves is when I'm in a meeting or any kind of group setting or anything like that, when people make blanket statements instead of using the I statement, I feel that like they're projecting, like they're kind of counseling the group instead of saying, I feel, or you get what I'm saying?
I do.
it just really makes puts a hair across my butt. I mean, it just, I personally, I believe meetings should be personal and personal experiences shared, and we're not there to direct other people. We're there to share our experience, strength, and hope, and hoping that it's going to help somebody, not that we're there to counsel somebody.
Thank you, Tommy. How about the gentleman how about the gentleman behind you?
Hi, Phil, it's Matt.
Hey, Matt. I can't
How's it
see you.
going?
You're like way far away, but that's okay. How are
See,
you?
sorry,
That's
I
okay.
just came in.
Yeah.
I just came in late to this, but a pet peeve of mine, it actually just happened recently. I was out with my family. We were on a drive to my daughter's gymnastics meet. And a pet peeve happened that it had to do with respecting, there were ambulances, fire engines, stuff like that. And they went through the breakdown lane on the right, and there were people, common people following them through that as, you know, paramedics are trying to get to an accident and stuff. And it's a pet peeve is everybody, we wait our turns, and if everybody works together, it'll all work out great. You know, it's all work together.
Gotcha. That's a great one. Thank you. Who else do I have? Robert disappeared. Leda, are you available to introduce yourself and a pet peeve of yours? Maybe, maybe not. How about you, Harold? Are you there? Oh, Leda's.
Hey, good morning. This is Harold.
Hi.
I am going through the recovery coaching training. Looking forward to becoming certified. Just a passion of mine to follow through with my own recovery. A pet peeve of mine is people who want to have a conversation with you while they're eating and you dodge food particles while they're talking to you or laughing.
You're so.
You know, there's things called napkins, and I don't know where my friend is from, maybe like Farrell, Alabama or something, but I had to be a teacher in etiquette at the table the other day. So that's one of my current pet peeves of talking and laughing with your mouth full.
Harold, where are you? Where are you
I'm
from?
in Atlanta, Georgia.
Gotcha. Thank you. Leda, now that Harold said one of his pet peeves are people who talk and eating while you're eating your breakfast, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leda, and I'm from Hartford. I work for CCAR, through this DOC program that we have.
Department of Correction. Yeah.
Yep. And something that pet peeve is like when people are rude. Like if you're having a meeting and they just interrupt the one that is giving the meeting. I think that's mine. Um, I'm also a woman in long-term recovery, and I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Leda.
Welcome.
Rita, you're up to, we did this, what was it, this week or last week? I don't know. You threw all that love and light at me, and I'm still trying to recover from it all. So introduce yourself.
I was going to say it so I could stay muted today. That would be okay. I throw too much love at Phil. He kind of gets a little freaked out about it, but you know. Anyway, my name is Rita Natali. I'm the center manager at New Haven Recovery Community Center. Always an honor to be here amongst wonderful people. My pet peeve, is that what we're asking?
Yeah.
I think mine is making assumptions before having all the information. Grateful to be here with y'all this morning. Thank you. Nice to see you, Phil. And of course, our folks.
Likewise. Lila, what's your pet peeve, Lila? I'm gonna make you participate. I know you just want to produce, but I'm sorry. Or she's probably on the phone or something, or she's just gonna like ghost me. Lila.
I didn't ghost you.
What's your pet peeve?
My pet peeve is people that I feel like someone said something similar to the people that are certain, but people that are arrogant and they think they know everything.
Mm-hmm. And talk to us a little bit about your role at CCAR and any thoughts you have about recovery coaching.
All right. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Put myself on camera. So I am on the CCAR training team. I am the instructional design manager. So I'm working with current curriculum and new curriculum to make updates and changes, as well as roll out new materials for everyone. As far, is it my role with recovery coaching or?
Any thoughts you have about it?
Okay. I mean, obviously I'm helping with the curriculum that trains recovery coaches. So it is very, it's just inspiring to see how many people attend our trainings and how far we get in that process and helping people along every day.
You have good energy this morning, Lila.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Nicole, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Nicole. Would you like to introduce yourself and with a pet peeve?
Okay, I'm Nicole. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a recovery coach and a peer specialist. And my pet peeve is in a restaurant when people just let their kids run wild.
Gotcha. Thank you. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I had to finish chewing my food. I heard that.
Well, you don't want to irritate. Well, you don't. Never mind. Don't want to irritate Harold. So, what's your pet peeve, Jonathan? What's your role too?
I'm an emergency department recovery coach here at CCAR. I'm currently on duty in the West region, and our dispatcher's on a call. So I figured since I wasn't on a call, I would tune in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I would tune in and do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a pet peeve?
I got a few. I got a few, but I'm gonna go with one that happened this morning. A pet peeve of mine is when you order drive-through and they mess up your meal, but they rush you through the drive-through. So I got home with a sausage and egg, with what I thought was going to be a sausage and egg croissant, and it ended up being an egg croissant and egg with no sausage.
Oh.
Except by the time I got home, I didn't want to drive all the way back to Dunkin' Donuts. So I just made myself a sausage and put it on my sandwich.
Well, that was a good solution. So thank you. I think we got everybody that we were on screen here. So what were some of the words, and you can put them in the chat or you can unmute and tell me what they are. I'm not going to roll out like one of the poll everywhere things or anything like that, but what did you feel when you described your pet peeve? What did you feel? Honest, sadness, frustration, heard. So this is when you describe it. Aggravated, but when you're actually in the middle of your pet peeve, what is that emotion that's like? Why did you call it a peeve? Aggravated, liberating, irritated and sad, annoying, right? For me too, I feel all of those. I also feel often like being impatient, right? That a lot of times when I'm just being impatient. And so we are going to talk a little bit today about patience, right? We're going to talk about patience, how it ties into our recovery, if that applies into our lives, and ultimately in how it ties into coaching recovery. So that's kind of the precursor. I'll tell you a story. And last month, we talked a little bit about the loss of my parents. And, you know, I'm good that I'm still healing because I still get choked up. But I talk about my mom, and I want you to relay a story to us and think of a story when you first learned about patience or you first heard that time. So you might go way back to your childhood. For me, I had to be 6 or 7, and my mom was an interesting character. I mean, she was born in Kilgore, Texas, in an oil field in a shack, moved to outside of St. Joe, Missouri, in Chillicothe, Missouri, and was on a farm. Was very popular in high school. She went to the University of Kansas, got her nursing degree, moved to New York City, and was featured in the New York Times as this up and coming young woman professional. And then she met my dad, who was an engineer at Pratt and Whitney here in Connecticut, and settled in Manchester, Connecticut, and had me and my sister. But she never lost her like farm country roots. And I was bothering her to go fishing, right? So she bought me one of those old Zebco reels, one of those black reels with a button on it and a little handle, and one of those cheap little poles. And we went to Bolton Notch Pond, and she tied a little weight on and a hook, and we dug up some worms in the yard. And I put my first worm on the hook and I cast it out there, and it settled down to the bottom. And she cut me a fork stick that she stuck in the side of the lake, and I rested my rod in it. And she said, "Now, Philip, you need to be patient." And I was like, no, I mean, when's the fish going to hit, you know? And so it was the first time I understood the meaning, or was taught that you had to be patient. That was very rare. If you were just going to throw a baited hook out there, that something was going to come along and bite it. But sure enough, I don't remember how long I watched that line like move off and the rod's tip start to jiggle. And she said, "You have a fish, Philip?" And I hooked the fish, and it ended up being like a 12-inch catfish, you know, which I thought was the trophy of a lifetime. I've never been so excited. I think that first fish was, you know, so exciting to me, and I never lost that joy in my 60 plus years of living. So, but it was the first time that I even knew patience was a concept. And anybody have any other stories you'd like to share about learning patience or about patience that go back when you first considered the concept? And this is where one of you would, you know, scroll down, raise their hand like James did. So we'll let James have the floor or the screen. I'm not quite sure how you say that online.
Cheers, Phil.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the first experience of patience, but I always had extreme trouble falling to sleep at night. And laying there as a child, I loved the attention, you know. So once mum's gone to sleep and my sister's in bed and all the fun has stopped, and I've just got to lay there now. And I used to just think, oh man, you know, this is hard. This is unbearable, having to sit with feelings. That was something that stayed with me until I came into recovery 30 odd years later. But just that feeling of laying there, and probably took weeks and months not to fall asleep, obviously, but to actually realize, if I just sit here calmly for long enough, I do fall asleep. And I was experimenting with, I think I fell asleep, because those weren't thoughts, they were unconscious thoughts. That's nearly sleep, and then I lose it again as I become aware of it. And then eventually learning patience, okay, don't look at the clock. That made it a lot worse. And I just kind of learned a bit of patience to eventually fall asleep, despite having a real difficulty with it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody else has a patient story, I'm sure. Maybe Khalees does.
I mean, I thought about a couple things because I mean, one, I can relate to the fishing. I can definitely relate to the fishing. We had a pond and that was and hunting, you know, things like that. Cause it's like, no, you got to sit here and wait. I think too, like, we used to cook with my Nana. Like we would go to my Nana's house on the weekends and we would, one, anticipate that trip of going there. So like, because we looked forward to going to our Nana's, it was like an escape. So like just waiting for her, but then also we would cook. And so that wanting brownies or something, but then the patience of having to wait for it to cook and like, no, this is a process. This is something you have to do, you know? So I guess that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Don't remember the ages exactly, but we were young when we were doing stuff like that.
That's cool. Thank you. Laura.
So my family celebrated Christmas when I was growing up, and I mean, you know, and it's just the first thing that came to my mind. And I can remember I was probably 6 or 7, and I wanted a bicycle for Christmas, and also wanted a cat for Christmas. So we had this one cat, but you know, he really wasn't our cat. He was just kind of like a hanging around the house type of cat. And it was probably, you know, June or July when I got these notions that I wanted a bicycle and a cat for Christmas. And I remember, I think my mom probably set me up with some kind of a calendar, like cross the days off the calendar, kind of countdown to Christmas. And still, you know, my siblings, they're all older than me and they tortured me when I was a child. So they would tell me, just because you're counting down on the calendar doesn't mean you're actually going to get what you're waiting for. And so that was a really good lesson. And I think overall it was a really good lesson for me so early on for like delayed gratification type of thing, you know? So yeah, I'm a big fan of the process.
So did you get a cat or a bicycle?
Yeah. Yes, I did. I got both. I got a bicycle, and my brother Keith, who was 10 years older than me, he was off at Cornell University in college, and he brought me a Maine Coon cat.
Wow.
For my birthday, all the way from Ithaca, New York to Georgia. Yeah.
He brought you a beast of a cat.
He brought me a beast of a cat. Yeah. She was my best friend.
That's cool. Rita, you had a story. I love your story, so you can share your story.
You be careful about raising your hand and then putting it down because he's paying attention apparently. So
for a change, right?
Right. I don't know if my story is quite as exciting, but when I was a kid, I was a baby of 8. My mother was a big puzzler. She liked any kind of brain teaser puzzle, like the Rubik's Cube and all the different puzzles over the years. Every year we'd go in and we'd ask for the most difficult puzzle. But when I was a kid, my mom had a puzzle. The first thing she did was open it up and throw the directions away, the solution away. And I was like, oh, just like Khaleesi's face right there. It's like, what are you doing? And she said, honey, anything can be solved if you just have the patience. And I never forgot that. And I proceeded to watch her. Sometimes it would take her a week, sometimes a day, sometimes an hour, sometimes 10 minutes. But she always solved the puzzle. And I just think I learned a lot about that from watching that process. It was pretty cool for me. So thank you.
Anybody else? A patience story. Neetha.
I think the first thing that came to mind was I think I was about in the 5th or 6th grade and I wanted to try out for dance team. So I'd gone to these lessons and all I can remember was that David Bowie song, Dancing in the Street. And I had to dance to this thing every night for hours. But then the tryouts came and the tryouts were like 9:30 in the morning and we had to wait till they put our numbers on the board at like 6 o'clock that afternoon. And that just felt like years at that age to get to that point. And I think the reason I thought about the stories was the patience to wait, and then what it felt like when you didn't get the result you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hence I didn't make the dance team in the 6th grade.
Oh,
That's all right.
I think of sitting in elementary school knowing we were going to play kickball or baseball or football. And I believe our bell at the time, the final bell went off at 3 o'clock, and the teacher could be done at 2:57, and you could not move from your seat until the bell went off. And I cannot remember a longer 3 minutes in my entire life, because it was like each time the second hand moved, you almost like, it seemed to stand still. That was me being no patience, incredibly impatient, and how painful that could be when you were there. Let me ask you another question then. Thank you for the stories. Does anybody else have a story they'd like to share about patience? All right, let me ask you another question. How do you define patience? Because we're throwing that term around a lot. How do you define it? Yeah, please.
I think I feel like this is kind of interesting because I can be very impatient, and my mom is a calm one, you know, and she's very much, because I want everything now, instant gratification. I want things to be done now. Mom's like, where's the plan? Where's the process? Where's, you know, these things? And I think kind of like being able to accept that, like, I feel like acceptance goes really close with patience. Like they're very much intertwined together, and like accepting that something's got to get done, you know, I just think acceptance. I don't know. I just keep coming back to acceptance, but like accepting that, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there.
Okay, thanks. James.
Yeah, I like acceptance. The first word that came to mind after a little brain freeze was willingness. You know, because you've got to be willing to just sort of sit and, yeah, whatever it is you're waiting for. Like, I guess you have to accept that you've got to be willing. Calm as well was a word that came to mind. Trying, you know, once you lose your calm and you lose your cool, things start to take longer when you're waiting for it. It's like, and then right at the last second, mindfulness came to mind as well. So living in the moment kind of thing, and tools I've learned in recovery about, yes, things might be far off and we might be waiting for a funding application, but it doesn't really matter because what we've got is the moment now. So yeah, willingness, calm, and mindfulness.
Thank you, James. Virginia.
Yeah, I really like the definitions that people have brought forward. And I'd like to piggyback on something James said around mindfulness. And my definition of patience has always been to be the ability to sit in the present moment without judgment and without projecting to the future. And I think about that as my definition because I didn't have a story about patience growing up because my mom was very impatient. and with 4 children that she was raising, I mean, everything was right now, quick and in a hurry. And I know how it felt when she didn't have patience with me. It was her inability to sit with me at a given moment, to see me through my transitions, whether it be tying my shoe or dressing myself or whatever it might have been, helping her cook. You know, her inability to sit in the present moment with me and be present there without projecting into the future or without judging that moment as being a bad place to be.
Great. That's excellent. Thank you, Virginia. Anybody else? What is your definition of patience? How do you think about it? Nita.
I think although when I take the time to sit and manage my own shit
Mhm.
and behave and do what I need to do for me. I guess what comes down when I think about patience is there have been many days recently I've written at the top of my journal, by design, with a capital B and a capital D, not my design. And I believe that when I am patient and I sit, my higher power will show me the right design. And sometimes that patience is just telling myself to be patient, not being patient with anybody else.
No, you use the term patient a lot, but so how do you define it?
So for me, being patient, it is being willing to just sit in that moment or those moments until I get the gut feeling that is the right thing versus the speedy thing.
Gotcha. That's a cool. Thank you, Laura.
So allowing the moment to be what the moment is,
Mhm.
and practicing tolerance while in that allowance of, like other people have said, being in the present moment. But it's like it's like Khalees said too, allowing and accepting that moment or that person to be what or who it is without
Gotcha.
trying to change it,
Thank you. Jonathan.
Well, for me, for patience, I was impatient growing up, but then when I went into the Army, it taught me a lot of patience because in the military, you pretty much had to, there was a term called hurry up and wait. So it was pretty much, I learned that if it's something that's within my control, then I could determine the speed of it. I could determine on what I could do with it, how I can make things happen. But when something is beyond my control, I have to accept whatever it is because it's beyond my control and there's nothing I can do about it. Excuse me. So that was kind of for me, how I learned how to deal with patience. First, I had to think, okay, is it something that's within my control? And if it's within my control, then I could do something about the wait or how long it takes or whatever. But then if it's something that's beyond my control, there's nothing I can do about it. So I might as well not stress about it. I might as well just relax. And when it happens, it happens.
That sounds a lot like the Serenity Prayer, right? And knowing the difference.
Yep.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anybody else? Rita put in the chat box a willingness or ability to let go of my need for immediate gratification, right? So one of the factors in patience is the passing of time. Without the time component, there is no patience. So you guys talked about staying in the moment. Patience also implies waiting. And now I've been able to do this little session a few times now. So I've had the opportunity to really ponder this and think about it and meditate on it and hear from many, many people. And you teach best what you most need to learn. Art Woodard was always a big fan of saying that. You teach best on what you most need to learn. I think he got that from somewhere. But I have learned to be comfortable in the waiting. So for me, that's patience, whatever I'm waiting for. It could be as simple as, if you get one of the last places where I know how I'm doing spiritually or emotionally is in my car. My AA sponsor says that the driver's seat was his last throne because he was king of his domain when he drove his car. And that is where I can tell what my spiritual condition is. So if I'm really aggravated and people are cutting me off or driving poorly or whatever, then I'm not being very patient. If I'm driving down the Merritt Parkway and all the traffic's backed up, what's my response? Am I comfortable in the waiting? Can I use the time to put on some music, make a phone call, sit and say right? Be grateful that I'm not in any danger of like crashing my car because we're stopped, So can I look at the silver lining of those times? Am I comfortable in the waiting? Okay. And that's just something for you to think about. And this has to do with you as a person, you as a recovery coach. We've talked a lot in these sessions about self-care and or soul care, how we take care of our spirit and our energy and our minds and our bodies. How do you get better at patience? How have you become more patient? I can't hear you, Khalees.
I was saying practice. I think like literally that's it. Cause I can think whenever, as other people have been talking, I can think about times where, I am very fortunate to have a woman in my house who is has lots of experience, and I'm sure I've tested her patience many times.
Are you saying she's old when you say she has lots of experience?
She has lots of experience in her personal and professional life, and I know that I have tested her patience a lot, but I'm grateful to have guidance, so things that she might say to me, like, for example, wait, why don't you read it in a week? Talk about something I want to write or something. Well, how do you feel about it? Or sleep on it, just things like that. By doing those things, I have become more patient. I feel like where I'm not as quick to respond sometimes. I have learned a lot from doing those things, but it does take practice, I think. And unless we choose to work on those things, then they're not really going to change either. Yeah.
Thank you. James.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's something for me that hasn't come easily or quickly. And I noticed the real shift came when two things happened. One, I went on a journey of self-discovery by doing the 12 steps. And throughout that, so many different tools I learned around patience. And part of that is being able to understand others and understand the situation and have faith and trust. And so many things, that came through going on that self-development journey. And the other thing has been meditation. I couldn't meditate for longer than 30 seconds. I couldn't even entertain it for an instant, if I'm being honest. Whereas now I have a daily meditation regime. It's not like guru-like, but it's 10 minutes regular every day. And that has helped me to just sit and be. And then I think that spills over, or it develops my mind or my spirit to be able to stay calm in moments where I might be impatient, accepting that I have missed a train and must wait for another one, rather than losing my stuff, losing my rag over it and just was already gone. Whereas before I just couldn't do it, Phil. I just couldn't do it. Whereas I've learned about myself. So understanding yourself, I think, is a good way of learning patience.
Self-awareness. I always believe recovery is a journey of self-awareness. Anybody else? How have you learned to become more patient, or have you? Or what do you think you might do or not do? Virginia, I see you clicking your mute button off.
Yeah, definitely through practice for me. It's been a skill that I've had to work on and develop over a period of time. But also being aware of my body, because impatience in me resonates in my body. Like I can feel my heart racing or breath increasing or just this anxiousness when I'm being impatient. So also practicing noticing how it manifests in my body. What are the first signs? And when I get those signs, it's like, okay, slow down the breathing, accept the moment for what it is without judgment and just practicing staying in the moment.
I love that. I love the idea of Art Woodard always talked about his recovery journey in the last few decades of his recovery was about managing stress. And I never quite understood why he was always talking about stress. You know, he's always talking about stress. And I'm starting to understand it. You know, he was always like several years ahead of me. So I would listen to what he said and I would be like, I don't quite understand that, but down the road, I'd get to it. And what you're talking about, your body, Virginia, it really reminds me of being on the Appalachian Trail where I would walk for hours with a pack on up and over mountains. I was physically exhausted. I was completely stress-free. You know, I didn't have any more physical stress. I didn't have any more mental stress or spiritual stress. I was incredibly patient. Those are all tied in for me. You know, how well my body is exercised, how well I'm taking care of myself. I often say when people ask me, what did you learn on the trail? The first thing I learned was patience, that things will work out. I don't have to force anything, that I can be much more open to outcomes and options and don't have to be impatient with things. So that really, I really agree with that a lot, that sometimes our impatience and or stress, I think they're closely related. Everybody carries it in their body one way or other in different areas too, and just to be aware of that. Rita, you're nodding your head. How come? What are you agreeing about? And
First of all, I love the analogy of driving. I agree with you about my spiritual condition, and I love what Virginia said, because I carry all of my stress and tension in my back and my neck. And I can feel it when and so it's a nice reminder. I was nodding because I'm like, oh, I love this, because my body is a clear indication of whether or not I'm stressed or not. And I don't always listen to my body. I think I just don't pay enough attention to that. But that's why I love the reminders. And I was nodding my head because my body, you know, the word dis-ease, right? And we don't think about that. But my body clearly tells me when I'm stressed or not, and I don't always clearly listen. So I was nodding to say thank you. I love the reminders. I totally agree. Totally agree.
I think that too, if I sit all day, and a lot of times when you're in this role, you can get stuck behind a desk or a phone or a screen or whatever, or just sitting in meetings or whatever, that I come home, I'm physically tired. And the last thing I want to do is go for a walk. I really just want to sit some more. So I found that being sedentary breeds being sedentary. The more sedentary I am, the more sedentary I become. And the opposite is also true, that if I can manage to say, hey, buddy, let's go for a walk. And of course, as soon as I say that, I have to go for a walk because he'll just drive my impatience through the roof because he's hyper excited. Get in the truck, go walk for 2-3 miles in the woods. I always come back more relaxed, less stressed, and just feel better about everything. I'm much more patient with my family, with the dog, with everything. And so for me, that physical activity, the nature, always improves my patience. You know, one of the things that early on in my recovery, I uttered one prayer that ever since, for the last 30 plus years, I've tried to take back. You know what that prayer was? I asked God for patience. And then I prayed for patience. It was by far the worst prayer I have ever said in my entire life. Do you know why? Why?
Because then you got stuck in long lines, traffic jams, and everything else.
People that were chewing and spitting out food or smacking their gum, or like there'd be 7 people in a row smacking their gum, or I go out onto the trail and find 11 bags of poop, dog poop, all bagged up, sitting on the side of the trail. And I just look up and go, what are you doing? So please take that prayer away. Don't pray that. That's pretty funny. I don't usually recommend for people not to pray something. All right, here's the wrap-up question, right? And you've probably figured out what this is about. How does patience tie in to your role as a recovery coach? Jonathan.
I would say for me as a recovery coach, patience is vital, because first we have to be patient with the recovery, because sometimes they might not be in a condition where they're totally coherent, giving you fluid answers and everything else. You got to be patient just to be able to get the information you need so that you can know how to help them best. Then also you got to be patient with the nurse. You got to be patient with the secretary who's going to fax the chart over. You got to be patient with the person at the level of care. You got to be patient with them when you call to check on said fax receipt. So it's because like you not being patient, you being impatient, you setting them off in the wrong mood, that can affect the recovery getting the help that they need. So it's like the recovery will suffer because of your impatience. So it's like you have to almost, so it's like you can't get invested in people procrastinated. You can't let it emotionally affect you. You got to keep your composure, because the minute you lose your composure, the minute you sound frustrated or upset, the minute you say something that upsets someone, that could directly affect whether your recovery gets treatment or get the help they need or not. Because you upset the nurse might discharge the recovery.
Yeah.
So it's like it's more, I've learned, sometimes you got to grit your teeth, you got to smile, you got to hold it, because if you don't, it could jeopardize the recovery getting the help that they need.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well said. Rita.
Yeah, I really liked what you had to say, Jonathan. Thank you. Because for me, patience is a direct link to my level of tolerance. And so it's pretty much following up with what Jonathan just said. In any situation, if my patience isn't there, I'm not going to have the level of tolerance I need to make sure that the recoveries are getting the best help that they can possibly get, or getting the best guidance or resources. So thank you.
Thanks, Rita. Laura.
Yeah, so just adding on there, in recovery coaching, I mean, I can't have an attachment to a speed of how things are going to happen with a recovery. I can't have an attachment to the outcome either. So somebody recently said, it might have been in the spirituality training last week, about, it's about effort, not about end result kind of thing. And that really struck me, because it's like all these things that I practice and try to invite other people to practice along with me, like painting on the same canvas for 30 days. It's an exercise in not being attached to the outcome. It's practicing healthy detachment. And so that to me kind of goes along. I know, don't listen, Khalees. To me kind of goes along with patience. It's the same thing. So I have to allow that person to unfold as they will unfold naturally, and I cannot rush that process.
Wonderful. Well, Khalees, you know, I got to ask you, what was that reaction out about painting on the two people sharing the same canvas for 30 days?
So Laura's amazing, and I like, we have a lot of synergy, and there's this activity, and I'd really like to try it, but I'm so scared. Every time I go to do it, I get scared because I'm like, what if I paint something really amazing and then I have to paint over it the next day? And it's the art of learning to let go, but I'm so scared. This is like the first time I'm like scared to do an art activity, you know, and I love art. So it's like really, yeah, that's it.
How's that tie with patience?
I don't know.
Well, think of
the patience of patience. I think it's more with like trusting myself. I don't know. I'm gonna ponder that, Mr. Valentine. I'm gonna ponder that.
I can't ask for anything more. Neetha. We can't, hard to hear.
Sorry. That's really interesting that Khalees said trust.
Mm-hmm.
And because when I was sitting here thinking, I was like, the patience when I'm working with the recovery is down to allowing the time to build trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that often that can take so long, and not having any expectations, like Laura said, outcomes, and just, you know, being there, sitting in that moment, respecting the silence, just being patient with whatever comes for that person at that time they're with you. But yeah, so patience, trust, and then she said trust, but couldn't link it to patience. So interesting. It just made me think, which is good. You're making me think, Phil.
That's good. Rita, are you still there? Because I have a story about you. But she's not there, so she'll come back. Anyone seen the movie Good Will Hunting, where Matt Damon is seeing Robin Williams, and they have how many sessions where Robin Williams just invites him to sit, and nothing is said for the session, and it repeats over and over and over again until Matt Damon finally says something. Robin Williams demonstrated what? Amazing patience, right? And to go to Laura's notion, I love what she said about it's not up to us to judge the speed or the pace of our recovery or journey. You know, I might be walking down the trail at 3 miles an hour. The recovery is walking 1 mile an hour and stopping for long breaks at Fuse and stuff like that or whatever. And where's my patience? You know, does it really, we all hike our own hike, right? So it's letting people hike their own hike, demonstrating patience that way. Is patience, would you personally rather work with a patient coach or an impatient coach? Patient. Okay, now here's the last little question I want you to think about and respond to too. Is there a time using the art and science of recovery coaching that impatience with a recovery might be valuable? Can you think of any scenario? Jonathan.
Let me unmute myself. Okay. I guess I would say that it's been a few situations where sometimes dealing with a recovery, that my impatience with them allows me to challenge them and hold them accountable. Because sometimes you can be too patient to where you're relaxed. you know, into where they get so comfortable with you that they don't show the initiative for their own recovery, because sometimes you're so patient and you're so comfortable that you almost give them excuses that they didn't even have. You know, so it's like sometimes, you know, I've noticed with a few recoveries that sometimes my impatience in holding them accountable and having them feel the feeling of being held accountable kind of pushes them, you know, to do better.
Love it. Thank you, Jonathan. Well said. Neetha.
I think about a time where kind of using that developing discrepancy where somebody has told you what they really want to do. And there might just be like they've got steps 3, 4, and 5, but they just can't take whatever those first few actions are. And I don't think I class it as impatience. I think it's just about finding a way to motivate somebody and support them to take those little steps so that they can move from that point. But by it, you know, when they're stuck in that spot of I really want to do something and I've taken a few steps, but just get stuck.
Anybody else think about impatience in the role of recovery coaching? Khalees?
I mean, I was just trying to think too, like, so something that I do a lot is I talk to students to get them onto training, right? And I end up coaching a lot of our students because it's like, oh, they have this happen, or, you know, something's going on. I end up just getting into chats all the time. And some people, I kind of use that, you know, you say you want to do this, like, but you're not, and I can get impatient as well as a coach because I'm trying to get my job done, you know, and I'm trying to do that whenever some people are kind of not moving as quickly as I'd like them to be. So that is me very much getting impatient, where I'm like, okay, well, this is going to, you know, say, for example, it's a training. I'm like, you say you want to get on this training. I've reminded you many times. This will be my last time to remind you. And then they book on the training, you know, like that day. And I think that I don't necessarily, I'm never mean, but I think that in a way, kind of the way that you word things is really important, and that which goes into asking good questions and all of this stuff as a recovery coach. So maybe that makes sense.
It did. It made a lot of sense. So what you guys are talking about is your art of recovery coaching, right? There's times when we know to be patient and we feel impatience rising up, but we still choose to be patient, right? There's other times where the impatience rises up and we choose to address it with the person we're working with, but we always address it with ourselves first. I'm feeling a certain way in here. And is this because of the situation? Is this my stuff? It's all about discovering and managing your own stuff. The line between patience and impatience, addressing it, not addressing it, is our own art of recovery coaching. So Rita, I'm glad you're back, because yesterday in Willimantic, I told a story about you. And Rita, I'll ask your permission to talk a little bit about your prior work history and all that.
Sure.
So Rita came from a place where she was not trusted. And from the day I met Rita, I trusted her fully. Now, she didn't necessarily believe that. And we've had some things where we've gone back and forth, and she wondered why I was doing things and all this. And I think for me, I was not incredibly, but I was just patient with Rita, because I knew we have an absolute gem of a person, someone who's highly capable of leading a recovery community center and has proven that over the years, right? And so when I was in New Haven, she goes, Phil, you know what? That vulnerability, I love when you're vulnerable. That looks really good on you. And I said, shut up, Rita. And if I had said that 3 years ago, she would have got hurt personally by that. And so then she just opened up her arms. And so it's, oh, come here and give me a big hug. And I said, keep your damn love and light away from me. And she goes, oh, come here anyway. And so I'm not going to do that. And she gave me a big hug, which meant the world to me. So that was an indication of how our relationship has progressed. And she's progressed to the point, and I know it was very difficult for you, Rita, and you don't know how much you touched my heart by just being vulnerable and trusting me, because I've always trusted you, whether you've believed it or not, I've trusted you. In a lot of ways, it mirrors, I know it's different when you're an employer, employee, but it mirrors the recovery coach, recovery relationship. There's sometimes where you just know, you see in that person, I'm still going to trust you. I'm still going to believe in you. I'm going to do whatever I can to support you. You'll come around eventually. And it doesn't have to be today. It can be weeks down the road. It can be months down the road. It can be years down the road. But that's each of our stuff, right? So I shared that yesterday in Willimantic too, Rita, just because it meant so much to me. So I'll give you a chance to rebut if you like.
No rebuttal. I'm, it's just funny. You don't, as when working with coaches in recoveries, you just don't know when something actually makes a difference for someone. So thank you, Phil. It's true though, a couple of years ago, I would have shied away and I would have gone home and I would have pondered, oh my God, what I do wrong now, and da 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 da. And now I'm just like, come here, give me a hug, vulnerability. I'm gonna love you to death.
Yeah, don't do that. I can't stand it. Don't do that.
I'm gonna still do it. But I guess the difference is I guess thank you, because I didn't really notice my own growth and your growth as well. So thank you. I appreciate it.
And oftentimes a lot of times it's like when recovery say, don't do that, they're pushing you away with one hand and drawing you closer with the other, right? So it's like this push-pull. And that's really the push-pull of patience and impatience, right? Within us and actually within the recovery lots of times. Anybody have any thoughts on what we just shared? Anything about what you've heard? Virginia.
Yeah, I just want to say I love this conversation that we're having. And one of the things when you talk about impatience, oftentimes for me, impatience moves me to action. And I see that playing out in my role as an advocate for the recovery when we're talking about systemic barriers that are put in, that are in place that we have to overcome. Like, I can use my impatience and turn it around for to be a better advocate for recovery. So that's how I kind of utilize and mobilize around impatience.
Love it. Thank you. I was writing the note down. That's up. So that was great. Thank you, Virginia. Khalees?
I just want to say thanks as well. This has been a great conversation. I think for me, like I'm very hard on myself, comparing myself and thinking I'm not good enough a lot. And so one, I really think that I've reflected on like my growth, which means, and I can see that I have grown a lot within like the past couple of years. Well, I mean, I'm always growing, but past couple of years, I can see a lot of growth in myself. And I think that it kind of made me feel a little bit more confident that I am doing okay. Like I'm not super crazy, I mean, I am at times, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, but I am more patient than I give myself credit for, I think.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else? Laura.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much. This has been extraordinarily enriching, and I don't have any other words than that to say thank you. But I also am captured by this image before me, which is, this little seed. It gets put in the ground and we have to wait we don't get to see part of it, unless we have like a little glass jar that we're watching the thing grow in. But otherwise, we don't get to see part of that process. And I think it's the same with a recovery. I mean, it's the same with ourselves too, because we might not see that growth happen. And we might be impatient with it because we can't see it happen, or for a host of other reasons. But to me, it is like that. It is planting that seed and trusting that it's going to be taken care of over time. And so I'm just allowing that to happen. Yeah.
Thanks, Laura. A couple things to take with you. I've also learned that how well I listen is an indication of patience. So if I'm really actively listening and engaged and curious, it is an indication of how patient I am. Another indication, and we talked about this at length, is how well I'm managing my own stuff, if I'm patient with all that. And another I discovered as well, and I've run this idea by a few people, and they seem to agree that the older you become, or maybe it's the more mature you become, maybe it's a both and, the more patient you become. And I don't know why that is. I just think of somebody like an elder of the recovery tribe, like a Don Coyhus, that you just sit with him and he is incredible. I mean, it's like he could be so busy, but if he has time with you, you're the most important person in the world, incredibly patient. He just, is in the moment so well. And I think that you can see that in a lot of the recovery elders or the elders of our recovery tribe, if you will, that we have Rick Davila, who's part of the Recovery Coach Professional. He does the interviews. He's in his 80s. He's got like 60 something plus years of recovery. That man is so patient. I mean, just so peaceful, so patient. So maybe that inner serenity is also tied in a lot with patience as well. So I think that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this, and I thank you all so much. Again, I always teach what I most need to learn, so hopefully today I'll be a little more patient. Thank you, guys.